Cave 13 is all about the scrolls, the Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton, and I've got another review for you today. And not only that, I'm going to lay out a case for you. We on BookTube, particularly Fantasy BookTube, love our heroes, right? Oh, Randall Thor, Vin from Mistborn. I could make a huge list. Maybe I will someday. But, you know, there's a hero in a series I see on so many people's best of list, and that is Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files. I love Harry Dresden as well. But if you're a big fan of the Dresden Files and Harry Dresden's, I've got a series that may be right up your alley. Now, this is not going to take, the myths and the legends and the pantheons of old, like werewolves, vampires, and pick a pantheon that Harry Dresden does and jump off of that for a great urban fantasy. This is going to take your everyday world of political maneuverings and things that go bump in the night. But think of Harry Dresden if it was written by Tom Clancy. Think as opposed to a wizard on the streets of Chicago, we're looking at a special operator along the lines of a member of a SEAL Team 6 team or Anti-Terrorist Task Force Marine. This is the Joe Ledger series from Jonathan Mauberry. It's up to, I believe, 13, 14 books now. And if you do love that knight-errant hero that draws a line in the sand and that encroaching darkness that juxtaposes the light of humanity, draws that line in the sand and says, "You will cross no further. I will stand up and protect my world and my people." If Harry Dresden gives you that great fit, I think Joe Ledger may be exactly what you're looking for in a new series. And I got an advanced reader copy of the latest Joe Ledger book called Cave 13, and I'm going to give a review for you today. So let's dive right in. My reviews work on a classic 5-star system. We're going to go over 5 categories: world building, plot, characters, pace, and prose. Each category can score from a quarter star up to a whole star, and at the end we're going to sit down, do a little bit of math together, and that's how I felt about the book. So, world building right off. This is where I think Jonathan Mauberry excels, because as a journalist, which is some of his background, he is able to research and take very real political maneuverings, the terrorist cells in the Middle East, the political maneuverings in our own country, things that go bump in the night but are on a certain believable level, such as biomechanics or biomedical weaponry. These kind of things he can twist to make some type of zombie story or vampire story, or actually introduce magic into the world that you actually will go, yeah, I can totally see that. I'll buy that. I'm in for the long haul with you on this book. It's so well researched and it's so well put together. The world is absolutely recognizably as our own, but he just turns it a little bit off kilter, always well researched. And then when he adds in a little bit of some supernatural elements, you're already all in. You're already there. You just completely believe it and buy it. I absolutely love his world buildings and the strength of his world building, which is the research. So I think every time I read a Joe Ledger book, and I read them all, I'm going to go world building. And now that we've gone into these later books, the world building has become so Ian Fleming, because they have their own special headquarters on a Greek island that no one knows about. So it just becomes more and more James Bondian in a way. If you're a fan of Bond, this may be right up your alley as well. So world building, absolutely 1 full star. So let's move to plot. Plot is an area that I have dinged Jonathan Mauberry a couple books in a row here in the Joe Ledger series, because it seems like he's got stuck into a little bit of a rinse and repeat with a bioweapon element that can turn your brothers in arms against you, make you lose yourself, and turn you into a weapon. And that actually happens in this book again, but it's not at the center of what's going on. What's going on so much here, there's so many plates on sticks, there's so many balls in the air, so many threads to be pulled together, that didn't bother me so much. It did have an element here, but it was a smaller one. Also, what we're dealing with here is finding Cave 13 is the 13th cave filled with the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it's the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's terrorism in the Middle East. It's finding out a beloved like Nat Geo history host of a show is an arms dealer. There's so many things going on that's almost impossible for you to see where it's all leading and where it's going. And this bioweapon element, that's another thread that's moving through it. It's like these fungal spores in these pharaohs' tombs, and it kind of harkens back to Tutankhamun's curse and what happens when you break into these crypts that haven't seen fresh air or the light of day all this time, and how that curse could actually happen. Again, wonderfully researched, absolutely plausible as you're reading it. So there's so many of these threads being tied together, as well as the long-running arc of the Nicodemus character kind of peeking in here and there. So I wasn't bothered this time by the rinse and repeat because it was so darn cool. This bioweapon being brought from these fungal spores in a pharaoh's tomb, being used by arms dealers and being weaponized, and then the chapter that they actually use it, it was so, oh my God, over the top, because it sends you into some nightmare scenarios in your own mind. And the way Jonathan Marbury can dial up the creepy in these nightmare scenarios in people's own minds is second to none. So it was so much going on with, and I don't want to give too much away because this is a book that has not come out yet, but so much going on with the Dead Sea Scrolls and what can happen there. I've said many, many times, not just this plot, but I'm trying to build up to Jonathan Marbury's connected universe here. But not only the Joe Ledger, but the zombie apocalypse books. And after that, the 50,000 years after that fall, he's now writing a epic fantasy series. And the epic fantasy series, obviously, how can you have sword and sorcery without sorcery? But if it's our own world 50,000 years after a fall, where does that magic come from? And you start to see in Cave 13 the seeds of where these magic systems can come from in this overarching shared universe. So just absolutely kudos for plot. It all, believe it or not, all these threads all come together in such a satisfying way. Plot, 1 full star. I cannot say it doesn't have a bioweapon again, because it does, but it was so darn cool, I didn't even care. So let's move on to characters. Everything, of course, revolves around Joe Ledger. He is that knight errant, that heroic character that has been sprung forth from a horrible tragedy in his young life, and it fractured his mind. And with his friend Rudy Sanchez as a psychiatrist, he was able to put this mind back together in the best way that he can, which is the modern man, the warrior, and the police officer, because he was a Baltimore cop before he was on the Special Forces unit. So these 3 personalities are always, depending on the scenario, vying for a dominance. He's a very interesting character. All the characters around him, top, Bunny, the female warriors from Arclight, really, really great. There is one character lately in these books that has been added in the past 3 or 4 books, and for some reason, now I'm not going to say that I don't like the character, because I do, but there are just times that this character just clinks for me as unrealistic. And when I say clink, I mean, you know, when you have that fine wine glass, that beautiful fine glass of wine of a book, and you thump the side, and without hearing that beautiful resonance that you'll get from a wine glass, you just hear a clink. And for some reason, this character just clinks with me. And I'm not even going to say the name, because I don't want to put that in anyone else's head, because I've read quite a bit how Jonathan Marbury writes. Quite possibly this is somebody from his own actual life that he's modeled this character off of. And she's a very real person. Just for some reason, for me, she clinks. And when I'm in those chapters that she is in, it pulls me out of the book for a minute, like, oh, come on. And for that, I'm going to take off a quarter star. Now, also, before I finish up with characters, I will say this. The coolest thing about Jonathan Marbury is he has been, I believe he's been the president of the HWA Horror Writers Association, and he is the current editor of Weird Tales magazine. He knows everybody. He is friends with everybody. And lately, in the past couple Joe Ledger novels, it's not enough that he has his own heroes. He has started to borrow heroes from other long-running series and having them pop up here. And it is so much fun. If you have not gotten in on this, if you're reading a different series, they might just pop up, I'm sure with author approval, in the Joe Ledger series. And it is so fun to see them pop up, and I absolutely love it. But only for that one character that clinks for me, I'm taking a quarter star off. Character again, 3/4 star. Let's move on to Pace. Pace, guys, always is a non-stop thrill ride in a Joe Ledger book. Even the moments where you are getting an info dump, and now you do have moments where everybody is in a situational meeting, understanding, pulling these plot threads together of what is encroaching and what is the evil at the moment that they have to mobilize against. But these threads, you've been trying to figure them out and put together for so long. When you do just have an info dump, when all the characters are just sitting together figuring this out, it's still thrilling because you're getting to see how all the puzzle pieces lock together and just drop in so perfectly. So even though the action will slow down and you do have plot threads that are just nothing but these chapters, they're nothing but an info dump, it's still just so readable because you've been wanting to put them together for so long, and it's so well researched. You love to see how it all ties together. Can't stop turning pages even when the action slows down. So Pace, always full star for Joe Ledger. That just leaves us with prose. I really do enjoy Jonathan Marbury as a writer. I am really enjoying his Zombie Apocalypse series. I enjoyed his vampire series from when he first started out, and sometimes the prose in the Joe Ledger series. Now, I started off comparing this with Dresden. So sometimes Jim Butcher in Dresden will rely on the homage he's paying to detective noir stories. So there are times when Jonathan Marbury is relying on the techno-military thriller that he's basing these books, this universe in. So the prose sometimes can get bogged down for me a little bit, like reading like a Guns and Ammo. It's all about military anacronyms and what type of weaponry they're carrying. And I'm not to say his prose when it needs to be beautiful isn't, but sometimes I can just find that this gums up the works for me a little bit, and I can't fix the problem for him. He is writing a techno-military thriller, so to describe this world, he does have to get into all these numbers and letters and what they stand for. But for me, it just slows it down a little bit. So for prose in the Joe Ledger series for Jonathan Marbury, I am going to take a quarter off. So what does that leave us with? If my math is functioning, which I hope it is, that gives us a score of 4.5 stars. Usually, this Joe Ledger series is always 4 stars or above for me, a little bit above for me. It is such a great thrill ride. Again, if you enjoy the Dresden Files and that makes your list, I really think this is a series you should check out. Book after book after book, it does not let you down. I know next year we're looking for The Alchemist, and that is when we finally get the backstory of a beloved character that we have had questions of for so long. So if you want to go on this ride and be ready for that, I couldn't think of a better series to catch up with. And if you love Dresden Files and you love Mouse, that faithful dog companion that Dresden has, you're going to absolutely love Ghost, which is the faithful dog companion of Joe Ledger. Give it a look-see. I don't think you'll be saddened at all. I can't think of any reason not to. You don't have to pick up the Ledger series, but do pick up and read something. Thanks so much for stopping by. My name is John Minton. This is Talking Story. Like and subscribe so you can stop off again and hang out with me some more. I hope you had a great time. I'm having the best time of my life sharing some time with you and talking about books. So until next time, keep reading.